Hey, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Paul,
And I'm Patrick.
and tonight we're going to be talking about villains. Are they right sometimes? Is there some good villains that we're just like, hey, wait a minute, that's not entirely a bad
Yeah.
thing, you know?
I think villains are sometimes unfairly judged without considering their motivation. And I think, Paul, what we'll go over in the next kind of couple of minutes or so is there have been more than one occasion where everybody, if they're really asked, okay, but what do you think about why they're doing what they're doing? Like, what do you think about why they're this villain? Okay, villainous actions, that's one thing. But villainous intent, that's a completely different thing.
That's exactly what we're looking at. Is the outcome that they're looking for essentially a what we could perceive as a hero's kind of um like a hero's goal or something like that, but maybe the method in which they're doing it or some kind of tragedy behind it might be is essentially affecting the our presumption and I guess perception of that character. um
Well, we all think we're the heroes in our own lives and in our own stories, and it's just a matter of perspective to know that you're the villain sometimes. So, Paul, the first one that we kick off with, I don't know if you'd had. Tell me if you'd chosen one,
I
because we didn't show note this, but I have a suggestion. If you don't,
I think I've chosen one, but I'd like to hear your suggestion just in case we.
I was going to say the big angry grape himself,
That's
good old Grimace
That's
Chin.
yeah, that's exactly who I was going to start with. He's the easiest one to be like, yeah, he's not a villain in the traditional sense, but he's
Thanos,
also
by the way, everybody.
yes,
Sorry, I used euphemism so that I wouldn't let the cat out of the bag. Thanos from essentially the best phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which
yeah,
means everything up until the most recent one.
and Infinity War and Endgame as their main kind of two the thing that we get to know them the best in. But yeah, Thanos's goal is essentially to save the universe by killing half the universe, which is where I guess the villainry comes in.
Well, again, yeah, action versus intent. But also, Paul, I like, and I know I swim against the tide on this one a little bit because everybody's like, oh, Thanos is a great example of somebody who wasn't really a villain because all they were trying to do was doing good. All villains from their perspective, well, not all, an awful lot of villains from their perspective could think that they're doing good. At no point did Thanos ever show us his homework. Like we're all taking it completely, oh, famine, disease, resources. So that's it. I'm going at a 50% everywhere and I'm just going to lighten the load and that'll work. It's like, whoa, buddy, I love where your heart's at here. Your heart is, I want to avoid suffering for people. But the level of detail and thought after that is all a little too casual. Maybe, dude, you are the villain here.
It
Because you can have a great intent, like Robin Hood can steal from the rich and give to the poor, but if Robin Hood had been pinging arrows through everybody's heads and taking their pocket change and just going, but I'm giving it to even poorer people. It's like, no, Robin, you've become a psycho, dude. Initial intent does not get you off the hook.
yeah, no, I definitely agree that his method of which he's trying to it's a very interesting kind of positional stance because we get essentially a really good example of it earlier on in the series with Iron Man and Captain America. Essentially, it's like there's two ways of protecting the Earth, and Iron Man and Captain America have one kind of method each, and one of them
Yeah.
can be perceived as evil, and one of them, or not evil, but one of them can be conceived as bad, and one of them can be perceived as good. And this is the same kind of thing that we're getting to. We're getting to essentially, but a grander scale kind of one. My problem with this character in the villainry arc is that if the audience can essentially figure out a better way of solving the issue, then we already have something not going on right. Because like
Yeah.
if we can go, well, he has the power to essentially wipe out half the universe, but does that mean that he has the power to essentially create like quadruple the amount of resource heavy planets that are in the universe? Like, kind of
Exactly.
that's where his villainry kind of falls, or his possible heroism kind of falls down is when someone with a notepad and 2 seconds of brain power can figure out, wait a minute.
Yeah. I think Mad Titan is a great title because it's a form of madness. It's a form of madness to think that you've got the right answer and can apply it, that you alone are the only one with the right answer and the conviction. That is where, because well-meaning as it might be in your head, it's a form of madness to think that everything can then be, subjugated to your will. And if I didn't do it, then again, didn't show the homework. Would things have really have gotten worse? Where, does he have that much of a predictor of the future? Or was it really, as the movie showed, he's sitting on his world at one point, talking about how it all happened. And it's like, ooh, feels like you're judging a lot of the universe on your planet. Also, that would be like me judging everybody else's family on my family. And that would be a terrible assumption to make.
Well, it's also basing it off the fact that they don't have the ability to suddenly make another planet.
Yeah.
Like, they're currently working off essentially, the thing that they have there. We could do an entire episode of Thanos,
Oh, yeah.
but you
Look,
could definitely
he's,
like he's definitely judging it off essentially like planet sized with planet sized tools when he's getting the Infinity Gauntlet and like the Infinity Stones, which changes the game completely. It's just like, oh, I can just make this abundant by clicking my fingers. It's
yeah.
just like,
And I think the transition from Infinity War, where he was much more of a sympathetic character, to Endgame, where he was much less, is notable because I think as time has gone on, I like that shift for one big reason. It shows that there was more ego in that lack of thought. There
mm,
was more megalomaniacal, driven calculation happening in, I can fix it by doing this, and, really exerting a power rather than thinking, all right, my end goal is to make it better for everyone always. And I now have the ultimate gauntlet power, but I'm still going to stick with my original, back of a beer mat sketch of, sure, how about 50% of everybody just disappears?
Y- Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, it does kind of give a little bit of a more background to the characters, kind of like I guess stubbornness and kind of like forethought in his. I guess we all get like that sometimes, where we get an idea in
And
our head and we're just like, I'm charging forward with this one.
we all
Um,
go a little mad sometimes.
but talking about resource heavy, kind of
Mm.
villainry, kind of thing. Wilfred from Snowpiercer. Um,
Oh, as I call him, the train driver.
Yes, the great conductor of Snowpiercer. This is to do with the movie Snowpiercer, not the TV show. The character is perceived differently in between the movie and the TV show. The TV show definitely a villain. The movie one is a little bit more complex to me.
Mm. Here's my thing.
Okay.
I'm gonna say something early that's gonna come up again later, and everybody on the internet's gonna go, God, he's a little weird. Paul, you already know this weirdness about me. There comes a point where survival of the human race is to be questioned if it should happen at all costs. And people are like, oh, but that's the idea. That's why we're here. We're all here to survive. Oh no, I'd say we're all here to live and communicate and contribute and build and create and live, laugh, love, whatever the favorite mug in your kitchen might be. Because I think the big defense for this villain is without him, he was doing awful things and knew what it took to keep humanity alive. It's just, is everything forgivable for the sake of keeping humanity alive? That would be the question that has to be answered for me to say whether or not this is a misguided villain or.
I get that. Yeah, I get that point. I guess we're going into the perceived thing as yes, it is an important thing that humanity does survive. But
At
that
any cost.
yes, and but that brings in essentially a lot of kind of like ethical and morality kind of questions. That does a lot of villains, I guess, on the list would then become a lot more complex. Especially some of them in the actually the X-Men universe as well.
Yeah.
Specifically, is it worth it at all costs and stuff like that? Does the ends justify the means
Mm.
in a lot of facts? But my
And
thing is that
Snowpiercer is one of your favorites, so I want to hear your thoughts on this.
my thought is that essentially, yeah, it is. He does have he is a kind of a for me he is a kind of a villain that is right if you perceive it essentially as trying to save humanity, um kind of thing. As in his sole focus is actually on the balance of the train's ecosystem, with
Yeah.
the understanding that the train is actually falling apart and stuff like that, and what it takes to keep it going and stuff. Um, like, so if you do go into the means of the ends justify the means, his idea is to keep everything going until hopefully, I guess, the world heals itself and then they can leave the train. The villainry part is more that, the because of his single focus on the balance of the ecosystem, individuals and people kind of get left behind, and as you say, the means of it essentially becomes more kind of dastardly and kind of villainy and horrible. Because obviously there is a hard, like, if you were to do it properly in the balance, you would have essentially everybody on the same level, kind of thing. But because
Yeah.
he originally had an idea for the train, and the way it would work, and then essentially a load of other people kind of because they also don't say that, like, they also forget that he lets a bunch of people on that he probably shouldn't have. He is also the architect of his own demise in that sense, that he didn't just let them just die out. He did actually open and let a load of them on,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
And my big defense for this particular character is us and the world around us today. So, how should I put this? This is a villain that chose to do things this way, possibly with an understanding of human nature. Could everybody have been fully informed of how things are going to work and what we're all going to have to go through and work as one big commune and communal, like, shared responsibilities? Sometimes you can have the good days, sometimes you'll be at the front, sometimes you'll be at the back. That would be a more equitable way to do it. It would be a lovely way to think. But is it his fault if humanity is proven? The let's face it, that film is allegorical for the world that we've created and the society that this planet en masse has allowed to evolve and then forces into existence. So I have sympathy there if he had expressed more in that movie and they'd given if there had been more time for him to go, look, I would have done it another way, but there's no way you can get humans to do that. And again, like you say, his end goal, let's make, let's get to the next step of humanity. Let's deal with today's extinction today and see if we can get to an egalitarian society tomorrow. Um, so yeah, I think the horrible thing about that villain is it makes all of us the villain when you really think about it.
Like, yeah, it's a difficult, because it's a lot easier to look at Sean Bean's version of the character in the TV show and just be like villain. But this one, it's kind of, he is like, he's more ambiguous because he's not seen for, like, he works through, or his it seems like his will is worked through people. When you get to the train and he's more focused on the engine and having it to keep going and stuff like that, and you suddenly realize it's just like, oh, this, like, essentially what's been put in place, like, because yes, he put a certain system in place and then other people have carried it on, kind of thing. That's what I
Yeah.
feel has happened there. But yeah, no.
And again, I'm with you, and I think the problem with starting with these two is, look, we've gone into all the nuance, but we're gonna have to move on. So, Paul, can I throw a few actually that kind of fit into this mold before we move away from it?
Yeah, of course.
Um, Particularly, and I have some notes over here because I think Ozymandias in Watchmen, and let's just take the version that everybody's seen in the movie, as opposed to, the motivation is the same, the method is slightly different. But the Ozymandias character is doing a bit of a Thanos, a bit of a Snowpiercer, a bit of a kind of looking forward and saying, and I'm smart enough to know that this is what it's going to take to get humanity to not destroy itself.
Yeah.
It's a variation on the theme, but the theme is still, for your own safety in the future, I'm going to do something awful. And the reason Ozymandias is so interesting to me is that he himself knows he's a villain by many, many degrees, as in by many measuring posts,
Yeah.
but still knows and much more overtly explains, well, humanity are lunatics. And, if we don't have a common enemy, we're definitely going to kill ourselves. And I think that, as a should humanity survive, is a whole other question of, well, if we are, trained to kill ourselves, or just so disposed to it, do we deserve villains like him that are coming along to try and save us from ourselves? And that's a weird thing to say. Do you deserve a villain?
Hmm.
Like, it's an odd way to look at it. Again, I know I'm a weird guy.
No, I agree that I think that it's his line of it's humanity's punishment for I think dancing with nuclear war um is such a like I'm not quoting or pretty much paraphrasing, but yeah, no,
Yeah,
that whole phrase is really really good. He is literally going, this is the only way that we can deal with this, like unless we get people to step back from the moment, and
yeah.
the only way that humans can essentially can step away from that moment is by having a catastrophe happen to everybody. Have a uniformed kind of like, this is terrible, and it's like, yeah, like I've dropped this in one or two places. Like, I've done what you were going to do to the whole world, to like a few cities around the world, and you've all danced now with the devil, and kind of realized that the absolute you know calamity that you were going to play with,
Yeah.
and like it's such a good but he has the will to do it, and he has
So he's
the
got the Thanos will, but more thinking than Thanos. That's the thing. I'll give him that credit, but also full awareness that it's awful, but not I'll be remembered for it. No one will know what I've done. No one will
Hmm.
know that it was me. Whereas Thanos comes across in the end, thanks to Endgame, as and it'll be a grateful universe that
Yeah,
remembers that I did this for them. Whereas Ozymandias is like, I wish I wasn't so smart. I wish I couldn't see that this is what's needed, but it is, and I'm not going to be looking for your thanks. And everybody watches The Watchmen, ends up fixating on blue dongs or whatever it is, but
yeah, yeah,
forgets that all of the characters, the genius of the story and the film adaptation, is that the characters there to show you different parts of society that are failing in different ways, and the different challenges that we're facing as far as our own. From Rorschach to actually go to any character, they're there for a reason. And it's usually a lot more subtle. On the 10th watch, you really start getting this stuff.
yeah,
And that's when Ozymandias goes from, for me, is when you asked this question, his was the first that came to mind. His
yeah.
name, it's like, that's a tough one.
Here's the other thing is, do you also perceive him as being right because he succeeds?
No,
Because
see, I still don't perceive him as being right. That's the thing, because again, ends justifying the means. Like I go all the way up to the line, but I don't quite cross it. But so if he'd done it and it hadn't worked, then yeah, then is the outcome really what validates the thinking?
see, I think he's right. He's one of the characters who is just like, yeah, he's right. Like this is it's humanity is needs a firm hand to. It's essentially a parent's hand to kind of going. You're playing with matches, and so I'll just burn you with one of them, and then you can see what you know.
But it takes a lot of a neck to say that he was, right from his point of view, for him even. Because how do we know? If he hadn't done it, how do we know? Everybody can go, oh, it's pointing that way. But lots of ships were pointed across the ocean, and it was the Titanic that hit the iceberg. It's one of those things of you don't know for sure. And okay, at least, for his character in the build up, he is played out as the smartest man in the history of time, in existence, let's call it. So he has almost that prescience because he's so smart. Yet to go ahead and do it, was there a 0.001% chance that it wasn't necessary?
But
I
was
would say that that's never completely cleared out. And I sympathize with Rorschach's take on it towards the end as well, of, just because it's right doesn't mean that we shouldn't fight for, what we have, the way we have it. There's other ways that we can do this. Um, and he's not giving anybody the chance to explore those other ways.
yeah, that's interesting. Kind of, yeah. I definitely think he's right. Out of all the characters or all the villains that we can kind of talk about, he's the one that I think is probably actually I perceive as the most right like thing, because he
I'd be
doesn't.
with you on that.
Yeah, because he does it without malice. He says that he does it without malice. He does it without kind of like any. He does it, and he's made himself feel everything he could feel about it. And then
Yeah.
yeah, but so like I feel that he's the rightest. I get your point, as in even if there's a small chance that we don't need to go down this path, is it better to try and go down to that more peaceful option? It's just like, yes, but if you know,
Well, is it right to give one person, if any one person takes responsibility for everything and says, I'm doing this because I know I'm right, Thanos can say that. You when you're talking at those levels, you're like, I, for how do we know? How do we know? That's why I say I walk all the way up to the line
see,
and then I don't cross it. Whereas you're only an inch further from me.
yeah,
You're
no,
only
yeah,
this much
I get how
daylight.
close we are. My only thing with between Thanos and him is the fact is that when Thanos succeeds, everybody is trying to get back to where they were. Whereas in this world, in Watchmen, no one is trying to get back to nuclear war, kind
Yeah,
of thing. So that's my
true,
only thing is like,
true.
the differences between the Mad Titan and
Yet.
Alexander the Great.
No, nobody's trying to get back to it yet. Um, and again, yeah, I think that's why these are interesting. And I want to throw in one, Paul, then just, I don't know if you've actually got imagery for this, but the machines in the Matrix.
Oh yes,
Because,
I don't have them on our thing, but I
well,
got you.
let's do, everybody knows the Matrix, the machines. Let's just do, 30 seconds. There's one where people are like, oh, the machines, it's, enslavement. Enslavement, evolution, depending on how far into the lore of the Matrix you go, we created the machines. The machines then replace us. We became batteries for the machines, but they also created a world for us to live in that is exactly like the world we live in now. Um, is there mercy in that the machines knew that we were going to end ourselves? Or if you look into the background of the Matrix, there's obviously the Animatrix and stuff where the lore goes that the machines wanted to live peacefully coexist with humans, but humans were like, nah, we're a bit scared of you now, so you're out of here. Um, that's one that I find very interesting because the machines are seen as a villain because Neo and everybody is seen as the hero.
Yeah, yeah,
But that's a very simple view of it when you consider if it's all about the existence of humanity, humanity is still existing. Okay, we're living in an altered state. We're both living biologically, but also, is the Matrix that much different than your perception of reality right now? It's a very tricky one.
it's I agree that it's a tricky one kind of thing. I guess my counter kind of argument about them being kind of like the kind of tricky thing is in to me is just like if they were that smart that they were able to create some kind of fusion out of human body like you and humans to make us into batteries that they could have like gone like they could have destroyed us down to a portion and then be just like right, we're not wiping you out, we're not like we're gonna live together now and try figure all this out and stuff like that, you
But
know.
remember, it's just not in the movies. That's in some of the further Matrix lore
But in the
that the machines
Animatrix,
did kind of go,
it's
yay.
it's not because in the Animatrix, they go to the UN and then try to go for peace, and then the war breaks out, you know.
Yeah.
But then they try to force humanity to sign a peace treaty, and then they explode and destroy the UN. And then it's like they go overboard. They don't like at that point humanity had surrendered.
Again, they're still villains. They're
Oh yeah,
still
yeah, yeah.
villains.
No, I know. My
Yeah,
point
yeah.
is that I don't feel. I feel that they were tragic. Like it was tragedy at the start, and then they turn full villainy to me, kind of thing. As and I
Fair
would be just
enough.
like I would be sympathetic if you then didn't decide to go full villainy.
Full bad guy.
Yeah.
So is there anybody that you want to throw in quickly with that group before we move on to others that maybe after the break?
My only my so in that kind of like I guess ambiguous ones, I don't think I have too many of them.
The saving us from ourselves group is almost what I'd call them.
Yeah, I guess the organization from Cabin in the Woods is a pretty good one.
Yeah,
They're
that's a
just
good
doing a
point.
job.
They're they're keeping the wolves at bay or the giant death gods, whatever.
Yeah,
I
the
don't know
God thing.
how
I
to
think
describe
the
it.
problem with them in this kind of thing is the fact that they take too much glee. I think it's the gallows humor or the dark humor kind of thing that turns them more villainry in us. I don't think they're actually villains.
Yeah.
I think they're following a program and stuff like that they do. I think just the betting and the kind of like jokes and kind of thing makes them more villainry. So
Or is it just their way of dealing with the unbelievable
oh
pressure, responsibility, and horribleness of their job?
oh
So
no, that's
yeah,
exactly it.
both
Yeah.
sides.
That's exactly it. I just think that when we see them kind of betting, it's kind of we as the audience kind of go, those
Yeah,
bastards. Um,
true, true, true.
anyway, we'll go to a bad break and we'll come back, which and go on to some of the other ones. We'll see you in a second.
All right, see you there.
Hey, welcome back. Yeah, so yeah, we were talking about the organization. Yeah, I think that they're not bad guys. I think they're definitely perceived out of within the film's context.
Yeah,
But if you actually think about it, I think the only thing that really kind of makes you think that they might be villains is the fact is that they're just the gallows humor part, which, as you clearly say, is like maybe it's just a mental way
yeah. Well,
of dealing
I'm
with it.
throwing in a weak excuse for them because somebody in the comments will put that weak excuse in. I think they're reveling in it a little bit too much there, Paul. I'm with you on that
Yeah,
completely. Um, there's somebody else. There's at least two others that I definitely want to cover, and I'm pretty sure that they're going to be on your list. The most popular would be Back to Marvel again. I think if people don't mention Thanos, they'll mention one of the other best quote unquote villains. I'm sure you've already guessed I'm talking Killmonger.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He is one of the other tragic villains, who is right. Uh, his his end goals and methods and stuff like that. Some of the things that he's doing, obviously make him the villain.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make him wrong. Um,
No, and so right, in fact, that it's his method, not his desire. Because even after, he's gone, your hero in Black Panther, T'Challa, actually, follows through on he's learned from the villain that, okay, maybe we were uh too removed and maybe we weren't contributing to society the way we could and being, a shining, bright, hopeful beacon. Um, I think there's, and I want to say this as an Irish white guy. I could accidentally throw things around and insult somebody in a moment, but I'm not gonna. But I think there's very much a Malcolm X, Martin Luther King moment there of different approaches to how you achieve your goal. And I'm saying those people specifically because this is Black Panther.
mhm.
But I think Killmonger, everybody recognizes as one of the best villains that they had. We did a whole ranking,
Yeah,
and Killmonger straight away for us was like, well, that's top one or two, isn't it?
yeah.
Because he was not only well portrayed, but just the depth of feeling you have for his motivation. Again, his methods, not so much.
Yeah, that's the yeah. I definitely agree there because he is right in the sense that Wakanda has become a very isolationist kind of state where it has such advanced technology that it can go out into the world and help. Which, as you say, T'Challa does eventually do. The only difference that Killmonger wants to do is he only wants to help a certain people. Like he wants to focus on a group first, before he helps the rest of the world, which slightly makes him wrong. Like we definitely understand that, like he has grown through the society whims of or the society problems that he wants to fix. The only thing is that he wants to specifically focus on one group rather than helping everybody, which T'Challa realizes that's what
Yeah,
Wakanda should
and
do.
to be fair, I guess part of that all is though that he's trying to reset an imbalance,
Mm,
and like you say, there's too much myopia there. There's too much of a single focus, and it's obvious with the the end of the movie that T'Challa and Shuri recognize that as well from a cultural point of view globally, and that imbalance. So that's where they're starting, but there isn't a suggestion of that's where they're stopping. So yeah, that's a really good point.
which is the only thing that you can perceive him as a. I think it's the method that he wants to go militaristic. I think a little bit more forceful
Yeah, I
as
I
well.
think that's where his
Yeah,
villainy comes in. It's the killing. Doesn't
yeah,
it always come
yeah,
back to the
yeah,
killing?
yeah.
Sounds like a Father Ted line for anybody who's watching in Ireland.
Yeah.
It always comes back to the killing, doesn't it, Father?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, where
Yeah,
I guess humanitarian aid is a little bit more kind of perceived as the better way to do things. But you can
yeah,
definitely,
exactly.
I think the very clean kind of reasoning behind him being right is because he is a tragic character in that sense that he's grown up in the situations that a lot of other people will be in, kind of thing. So he's firsthand experienced it, which is very important for the character because it's just like you kind of there's no kind of I need to see your workings as compared to Thanos. It's very much like we definitely understand where you're coming from. The tragedy is that you haven't come to a slightly different conclusion, which would have actually probably like helped you kind of achieve that goal. Like as in if you would come to Wakanda and eventually gone like this is what I want to do, you'd probably have a lot more people going, you know what, actually he's right. You know,
Yeah.
you'd have a lot more support. I think it's just as an isolationist and as a perceived kind of enlightened culture, not perceived, but an enlightened culture, that they're very much kind of like, no, we don't just kill out of nowhere, kind of thing. So
and and that's yeah. So it's his. The other thing that separates him from that first group that we were talking about is that his rage, his anger, the reason you can recognize it and be sympathetic to his anger is that it's not a perception of what will happen; it's a reaction to what has happened. So that makes that villain, you know, moves him, moves him up on a plane of understanding and sympathy from the audience,
yeah,
because we can all say, yeah, he's not saying, well, maybe the world will end, Ozymandias. Maybe we'll run out of resources, Thanos. No, he's like, things are stupid, and you could have been doing something about it. And that rage is very understandable and is not at all ambiguous.
and just to cover off also Thanos people, which is he has seen the past in his own people getting destroyed because of resource shortages and stuff like that. The difference is that there's a smugness in Thanos's being right kind of thing, as in when it happens, and he's just like, "I told them so," you know. Whereas Killmonger is
Killmonger's not
very,
planning on going to every other planet going, here, I'm going to fix your
yeah,
societal
like
imbalance.
as in Thanos is like, "I told you so, so we'll just do it my way." Whereas, um, solely the sympathetic thing on Killmonger is, "I don't want it happening to anyone else."
Yeah.
Like Thanos has that as well, but he also has the smugness of "I was right," which also tips the balance against him,
Yeah,
kind of
and
thing.
he's applying it with a very broad board. He's not just looking at his own. I saw it happen to me, so I'm never letting it happen anywhere else. Is a big anywhere else, as opposed to Killmonger. That's like, no, I've seen what's happened here. I want to fix what's happened here. He's not, planning on building starships or a gauntlet to make sure that he can completely change the rest of the universe, which he hasn't seen all of. Yeah. So sorry.
No, no, no,
Well,
you're completely right. Like um,
do you want to pick the next one, because like I say, there's one more that I definitely want to make sure we get in, but I think I want to make sure you get a pick on the list somewhere.
I kind of want to move to another genre, so I don't know. Does
Go
the
for
other
it.
person?
Yeah, yeah.
So this is the simple. This is the what I will call the victim villain. Um, so the Wicked Witch from Oz, because it's also very topical right now.
Doing
She's
it for the
not a.
SEO.
Huh? Not
Doing it for
a,
the SEO. Wicked,
no,
wicked, wicked. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
not only doing it for the SEO, but also the fact is, Dorothy drops a house on her sister, and essentially she wants to get revenge. So if you were to
And she
switch it
wants her
around,
shoes back.
yeah, but she also wants like revenge. So you kind of like, so this is my victim villain kind of like section, I guess is the thing.
Well, John Wick loses a dog and wants his car back. She loses a sister and
Yeah,
wants her shoes back. And John Wick's a hero.
yeah, that's my very much as in it's very much the perceived of who is the hero and who is the villain kind of thing, because there's a couple of other ones which is that I can do which is Starro from the Suicide Squad, the second
Right.
one. He's the
Yeah,
big
yeah,
starfish thing. He's a victim as well because he just crash lands on Earth and is immediately essentially captured and turned into an experiment and tortured and stuff like that. You know, he does kind of like, or it shouldn't just genderize it. It essentially, you know, is a victim. It's like, you know, it is a victim. So when it's perceived as a villain, I
yeah,
definitely think that it's not. It's very understandable why it goes mental and goes
yeah.
and starts attacking everybody. I'm trying to think of another one. A victim one also would be Blade Runner.
Well, that's the one that I actually want to pick, Paul. So, like the Roy Batty, Rutger Hauer character is what makes, everybody talks about Blade Runner being, all-time sci-fi classic.
Hmm.
Well, you know, everybody talks about how it was filmed and how beautiful it is and this performance and that performance, and they all boil it down then to his fantastic speech. Rutger Hauer's fantastic speech, The Tears in the Rain.
Mm.
But the reason, as far as villains go, I love that villain is because yet again, like we talked about earlier in the episode, there's a reflection of mankind there. This
Mm.
is somebody who was unfairly created to be used and then given a very short life. And his all of his anger is directed completely at the people who've put him in this position. He wants to meet his creator. And if there is anything more human than the idea of trying to understand your place in the world and think about your creator. In his case, he knows who created him quite literally.
Yeah, like there's
The idea
no.
of meeting God and going, God, why did you do this to me? Like there are so many people on the planet and so many people that we all know that are going through tough times or have things, and you almost want to feel like they deserve 5 minutes with their creator to go, why do that to me? Why make me have this horrible life? The rest of us that are able to do internet shows and have great lives, maybe we won't recognize it so much one on one personally, but I think the concept, and that's why that Tears in the Rain speech, that's why the fleeting beauty, the humanity, it's why Deckard doesn't see him as a villain anymore.
Mm.
And that's why I would say if he if he wasn't cybernetic or synthetic, I should say, I would say fits more psycho than villain.
Mm.
Is there something villainous about what he's trying to do, or is it just that he was made as a killing machine and that's how he's expressing his lack of understanding about where he fits in the world, and his anger is coming out through his raison d'etre, his literal reason to exist was death in a lot of ways.
Yeah, like that's a very difficult. Like I do agree that he's a meta like a he is a metaphor for human conditioning, as in like we are all asking for more time, like and stuff like that. Like as you said, but I think I do think that the methods in which I think the fact that we know he's a synthetic makes him feel more villainary, because I
Mm.
think just as a special thing we kind of side with our own kind.
Yeah, which is
Um
disgusting when you think about
oh,
it.
it's an absolute, like
Yeah,
we cannot I think the reason that we're so like empath or apathetic, is it apathetic?
yeah,
Um
we're lacking empathy
yeah.
anyway at that point.
Um is because we perceive him as immediately as another thing.
Mm.
Um
And the question I would ask Paul is, what choice is Roy given? Like the actions that he takes that are terrible and awful.
oh,
What choices is he given? Like in any other story, he could be the hero because we watch people like John Wick go and just mill through nightclubs
oh
full
yeah.
of people, and he still gets to be the hero. This guy didn't kill millions on the planet. He didn't try and end half of existence. He's don't get me wrong. He's bad news and a rough dude that you don't want to meet down a dark alley and has too much anger and too much ability to express it violently, but could easily have been a hero in another story because here's somebody who's trapped in a situation that's completely unfair and they're being left no avenue but this. Like if you told the story again and purposely rewrote it so that he would be perceived as a hero, you could pull it off.
Well, like yeah, no, easily. I think there's a very big kind of tell on the percent, and I think that we should also. I think that's a question that we should ask ourselves as well in the future on the show. Is yeah, the point of view of the characters to the audience is very important, because yeah, we could easily switch this on his head and just be like, he's the hero and Decker's the villain.
Yep.
So and this one also has a very kind of classical kind of storytelling as well, or classical story to it, in the sense of a person who wants more time and stuff. So yeah, he's an interesting one.
You
I
take out
do-
10% of that sadism, and you can easily do that by giving him the excuse of that he was made that way. Um, It's a tough one. There's a moral philosophy course somewhere out there that is entirely Blade Runner based, I'm sure.
So I'm going to go on to our last few, which is because we can run through them quite quickly, I
Hmm.
think. Which is oh, I can't. My only problem is that I've completely gone blank on this character's name again. He's from Incredibles.
Oh, Sinister, not Sinister, Sinestro.
Sin-
First one or second one?
Second one, first one,
Syndrome.
Syndrome. That's it.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes, Syndrome first one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. These two, Incredibles one, Incredibles two, have brilliant villains. In a lot of ways. The first one is essentially a person who's essentially born not that they perceive not with the same opportunities as superheroes. His super intelligence kind of uh breaks that mold, kind of thing. But he's a tragic character, and or I don't I feel that he's actually do I don't know if he's right.
He's a bit of an asshole, but you can see where he's coming from.
Yeah, kind of thing.
That's I'd give him that category.
Yeah, which was what is it?
Screensaver.
Yeah,
Is it?
Screensaver is another one which we know this character quite well, especially from just not this character, but this archetype from
Well,
like
it's Civil War, isn't it?
it's
Like,
Justice League, it's Civil
yeah.
War, it's Suicide Squad. It's essentially a person knows this, like knowing the fact that if superheroes decided to turn on people, we have another character that's immediately it, which I was going to follow
Yeah.
up with. Essentially, if superheroes decided to turn on humanity, what could we do? Which links directly into which is General Ross, who is also
Oh,
that kind of character.
Thunderbolt.
You know,
Hmm.
I don't know where his picture is right now.
Well, I have him in my head as Mr. Hurt, but soon to be seen as Mr. Harrison Ford,
Mm.
in a very different portrayal, I'm assuming.
But
Yeah, well, I don't know if you also have Gore the God Butcher there,
I don't.
because one thing I'll say very quickly for Gore the God Butcher, the question of was he right? Yeah,
Yeah.
he was angry at the gods because they were selfish.
Mm.
And in the stories that were shown, yeah, the gods are selfish. So was he right about his assertion? Absolutely. Was he wrong to maybe go on a 100% maximum killing streak to say, right, then they all must go? No. Therein lies the difference between, like I say, there's villainy, and then there's a bit of a psycho to it all. Where's your madness coming from here? What's messing you up? Sometimes it's just the length to which they're willing to go, or the totality which they want to fix things. It's like some gods are assholes. All gods must die. Ooh, careful now.
I guess the flexibility is where the nuance of kind of knowing, like carpeting the entire, or like
Yeah.
generalizing all the gods as one, is kind of where his, I guess, kind of where his villainy could. Because if he worshipped Thor, he might have been saved. Um,
Well, that's it. Actually, true. If he got a good one. So Paul, that's us. We're heading towards wrap up then, I think. Um,
yes,
so I would like to get to looking at you people at home watching right now, wherever you are in the future. Get into the comments, argue this with us, tell us what we got wrong. But most importantly, if there's somebody that we've overlooked, that's the question to you this week. Who do you think that we've overlooked that was a villain? They don't have to be, beyond reproach here, but who actually had a lot of good standing behind what they were thinking.
yeah,
So
he
get
was.
into the comments and let us know.
Yeah, who was right, kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, no, thanks very much. Like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and share us out. And that's about it. Hopefully, you have a good week.
So I've been Patrick,
I've been Paul.
and we've been Heroes Out. And I guess we'll see you next time. Be good and don't try and end half the universe.
Bye. Try to double the resources.
Good idea.